Hey, it's Drybear. Now that we've already covered a starter guide for every single class in Dragonflight, you can find those on my channel. We're going to be going into more detailed guides, intermediate and advanced guides for the content itself. Today, we're going to be jumping into Holy Paladin in M+. I'll give you a talent build. I'll talk about why the talents are important and some tips and tricks and general rotation for playing your Holy Paladin as you push higher and higher to Keymaster and beyond. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come say hi. So let's jump into it. We'll start with talent build because it's probably the baseline for the kit. It'll help explain some of the rotation and decision making you'll have. And then we can jump into other things about M+. I have two Mythic Plus builds that I use depending on which dungeon I'm running and how and what the affixes are that week. My standard build looks like this. And this is probably gonna be pretty standard for anyone that runs Holy Paladin. I don't think there's too many variants on how you build your Holy Paladin from M+. It's kind of like you have to run this build. So we'll start with the class setup here. You're gonna want the Rebuke Interrupt, just because there are tons of dungeons, especially this season, that really need an interrupt for things that you kick. You do want to run Avenging Wrath, and I would run that in addition to Avenging Wrath Might. And then managing your wings cooldown is everything for successfully completing a high key M+ with Holy Paladin. If you wings at the wrong time or don't utilize getting your free wings as well on good rotation, it can really punish you later on. You're going to want Blinding Light. For some dungeons, you may want Repentance, depending on the pulls, but I feel like the higher you go in keys, the less CC you're going to be using, unless there's a specific pull that absolutely needs certain mobs to be CC'd, or if it's like a week, like a bursting week or something where you may want to separate out the pulls. But for the most part, Blinding Light is great. It can serve as a separate interrupt as well, so you can just interrupt them with a Disorient and then go on. But it also allows you to do a little holy damage on top of it as well. And if you want this build, I'll have this build and my defensive build down below in the description. It'll just be this this link. You can just copy it, import it into game, and then give it a name, and you got yourself a build. So I'll give you both those builds down in the description if you want to just import them. You obviously want Bop. You're not going to be able to run without Blessing and Protection, to be honest. This is super crucial. You want to be careful about accidentally bopping the tank, especially if the tank is a paladin, because giving forbearance to a paladin can really mess them up. But other tanks you can bop in some circumstances if they're ready for it and you talk about it ahead of time, because you will end up messing with their threat aggro. But this is super great if there's bleeds, like in Brackenhide, there's a couple bleeds that are pretty nasty. If they get hyper-focused by a boss, like in Halls of Valor, you can really get rid of those bleeds and physical damage with Bop, and it's just a really nice external cooldown. You definitely want Blessing of Sacrifice, and I would highly recommend getting Sacrifice of the Just. This makes Blessing of Sacrifice a 1 minute external for your tank that is a 30% damage reduction. That's almost as good as Pain Suppression, which makes an incredible cooldown. Remember, the damage that they suffer, you will take the damage as well. However, it can't kill you. If you drop below 20%, it'll cancel the effect. So sometimes on really big pulls, if you have a really good tank, I will end up using something like Divine Protection, or I'll pop heals on myself just to make sure that the sack doesn't fall off, because it's actually really good for big pulls. You will want to run Divine Purpose. I've messed around a lot with Holy Avenger. I feel like the cooldown length is just too long, and you get so much more value out of Divine Purpose. So you're going to be picking that up. And then some of the choices you make are down here on the right side of the tree. For the second tree, this class tree, the spec tree itself won't change, I don't think, at all. There's not really much else you can get in here. I've tried going over for Tears of Deliverance. I don't know if there's anything you can play with around here. And I actually, apart from the last few expansions, I think that Beacon of Faith beats out Beacon of Virtue, even in small 5-man content. The big thing that you want to know about your build is going to be these two right here. And this is probably the thing that I see Holy Paladin players, when they're newer, mess up the most, is managing their Dawn and Dusk blessings. These things are insanely strong, and you want to be managing them. So the first thing is look at Of Dusk and Dawn. When you reach 5 Holy Power, you gain Dawn. When you reach 0 Holy Power, you gain Dusk. Dawn makes it so your damage and healing is increased by 9%, and your Holy Power spending abilities deal 8% additional increased damage and healing for 20 seconds. So you get increase, and the spending abilities, Word of Glory, Light of Dawn, heal for even more. So you want to have Dawn up 24/7. You never want Dawn to fall off for any reason. So every 20 seconds, make sure you hit 5 Holy Power, max it out. And that's part of the rotation and gameplay that you have. And then obviously, when you're in Dawn, your Holy Power spending abilities deal an additional damage and healing, and in Dusk, your armor is increased, and your Holy Power generating abilities cool down 10% faster. Seal of Order is what makes you really want to get Dusk. Damage taken reduce, armor increase, and Holy Power generating abilities cool down 10% plus another 10%. So you can imagine how that works, right? You really, 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 really want to be hitting your 5 Holy Power as quickly as you can. And then once you hit the 5 Holy Power, you'll see that the Dawn buff will pop up. Boom, there's my Dawn. And then you want to spend that. And then managing that, so now we have both buffs active for 20 seconds. So that's the biggest part about managing Holy Paladin. You will be using these in Raid as well, just slightly differently. But for M+, you need to make sure these are both on. So that is the class talent tree. And then you have some haste here, and then I would pick up Sanctified Wrath. Super nice. It combines with Avenging Wrath and gives you the Holy Shout cooldown, which is really good with Glimmer of Light. The only difference between my two builds is going to be this corner right here in the class tree. So for my regular build, just basic build, you will want to get Incandescence. Hollowed Ground Consecration damage is nice, and then Seal the Crusader is also nice. Your attacks have a chance to cause your target to take increased holy damage. This can just take more damage from you, and also if you're running, any classes that run holy damage, there's not that many of them, but it is a nice little bonus. However, some dungeons, like Temple of Jade Serpent, or if it's like a really nasty tyrannical week, or there's just gonna be a lot of damage taken, there's a slightly more defensive build that will run. The spec tree is the same, but down here, there's some avoidance that you can pick up, which is super worth. Which rather than grabbing this here, you'll just pick up speed and avoidance, and you do want to pick up the extra haste plus the mastery increase. So this is the one I'd probably use the most on high keys, just to get, like, you don't underestimate how much value that avoidance gives you. It is a big difference when you're rotating, but that's basically it for the class tree. On to the spec tree. Nothing too surprising here. You want to pick up all your basics here. You do want to run Unending Light, super big. Aura Mastery is awesome. You're going to run it with not either of these, but you will run it with your Devotion Aura. This is a really nice cooldown. When you pop this up, when you have Devotion, it gives everyone 15% damage reduction. It scales it all the way up. Super good. It can help you survive some nasty mechanics in a lot of the M pluses this season. So you want to be picking that up. Divine Favor is a huge grab. This one allows you to increase the healing of your Holy Light or Flash of Light, and then it increases the cast time. So you basically want to be using this on cooldown. You'll be popping this. I like using this with Holy Light just to make it faster, especially if we have extra procs, things that we can manage with it. It's super nice, but this really allows, and remember, this increased healing will propagate through your beacon targets, which is really big and huge. And now that we're on the topic, let's talk about that as well. Historically, in Legion and beyond, Beacon of Virtue has kind of been the group go-to for Beacon. So what Beacon is, if you've never played a Paladin, maybe you're brand new, you're looking to play a Paladin, you have this ability called Beacon of Light. You can mark a target. You can see that I'm marked here. If I heal another target, my Beacon of Light target will get a portion of that healing. And some added benefits to that as well is if I heal a casted heal on my Beacon of Light target, I get a Holy Power. So super useful. We'll talk about that when we get to rotation, but allows you to build up Holy Power, which is really nice. It really helps you get through to your Dawn and Dusk, right? So you can actually get to 5, then get to 0, get your Dawn and Dusk buffs, and then you're good to go. But what Beacon of Virtue does is it's time limited, but it affects 4 targets, which means it's your target and 3 others. You can heal the 5th person, and then everyone in your group is being healed by the same heal. Super nice, but it only lasts 8 seconds. And I think because the Holy Power building and spending is much better in this X-Pack, I think that Beacon of Faith is just better. So what I usually do is I will put Beacon of Faith on myself and then Beacon of Light on the tank. And then any heals, if I heal a 3rd person, both of us get heals. This helps a lot since I'm using Sack on a 1-minute cooldown, which means I'm taking damage when the tank is taking damage. So then any heals help me stay alive as well and make sure Sack doesn't fall off. Occasionally, I will move my Beacon of Faith to a target that's really low. If I feel like they're just taking dot damage and they're not in danger of dying, I might switch it over to them, heal the fourth person, and then they both get a little bit of benefit, and then I'll switch the Beacon of Faith back to me. I would say if you're just starting out with Holy Paladin, you can just put your beacon targets down, forget about it for the rest of the time. The other mini game that you play with Holy Paladin is Infusion of Light. So every time you crit with Holy Shock, which you'll crit most of the time, you will get an Infusion of Light, which is really nice. It allows you to build off, there we go, to get, well, we'll get 2 stacks, but that's from something down in here. What this does is that when you crit with Holy Shock, you reduce the cost of your next flash of light by 60%, or your flashlight is a lot faster, or if you use Holy Light, which is your slower, more mana efficient heal, it'll generate an additional holy power. We're also going to run with some extra here. So Infusion Light has 2 charges instead of 1, reduces the cost of flashlight by an additional 30%, and has a 30% chance to generate an additional holy power. So again, if you're not under duress and you have that, you get that crit, which is super nice with Holy Shock, then you can actually use it with a Holy Light. That Holy Light has a chance to generate up to 3 holy power, which then you can immediately spend on a Word of Glory, or you can spend it on a Light of Dawn. Super nice, builds that up, and then you can kind of play off that. So you should get some kind of tracker that tracks whether you have Infusion of Light procs or not, and then it'll really, part of the mastery of Holy Paladin is figuring out when to spend that on Flash of Light, when to spend that on Holy Light. And then you're obviously going to pick up Glimmer of Light. This means it's kind of like the Holy Priest Echo, where you can actually, when you Holy Shock someone, they get Glimmer of Lighted for 30 seconds. When you Holy Shock, all targets with Glimmer are healed, and you can have it up to 8 targets. So what you do with this is you can see how I'm tracking this on my Voodoo. You make sure that everyone basically has Glimmer of Light, especially the tank. And remember, this will also mimic through Beacon. So you make sure you have that. And what's cool is when you're running Divine Toll, which you will, it Holy Shocks up to 5 targets. If you target this standing close enough to allies, it'll Holy Shock all of them, which means that when there's a bunch of damage coming in, you can go through and you can get a really big Divine Toll, hit everyone with Holy Shock. They all have Glimmer. Then your next Holy Shock, we heal everyone that has Glimmer on them, and you get that really big group healing coming out of it. Next thing to talk about is Awakening. Word of Glory and Light of Dawn have a 15% chance to give you wings for 8 seconds. This is huge because, like I said, you live and die by your wings cooldown. Mismanaging your wings, like you pop your wings too early on a pool that doesn't need it, you can really get screwed by that. Because then if you get to a point, like honestly, you're a god with wings up, and then you're okay, decent healer with wings down. So managing your holy power, managing your wings is everything. It's everything to you. So what you want to do is when you have wings down and you don't have it ready and available, try to make sure that you're paying attention to Awakening. So you might get some, you build up some holy power, you spend that with Light of Dawn or Word of Glory, and then just see if you get wings. See if you get a wings proc. If you don't, then you can pop wings. It is a short wings, but as you use it up, you'll realize that you'll start to get more and more procs of this, and maybe right when damage is about to start, boom, I got a wings proc. I can see that that procced up. So now I have wings for 8 seconds, a free wings from Awakening, and then I want to use that, and then when it drops down, then I can use mine, and that helps you manage the cooldown and the breakdown. And the last thing we'll talk about for talents before we get into the general gameplay is going to be Blessing. This is the Night Fae Blessing from Shadowlands, and this thing is amazing. So what this is a rotating buff. So it'll start as Blessing of Summer. When you cast it on someone, it'll rotate to the next season of the year, which has a different buff. The one that you want to, the two actually that you want to know the most, be aware of the most, is going to be your Blessing of Autumn, which makes their cooldowns recover faster. You can put this on a tank, super useful. You can put it on your biggest damage dealer, super useful. Or if you're really struggling, you can put it on yourself as well. So when you pop this on someone, it's a 30-second duration. Your cooldowns are coming faster. This affects your Holy Shock, which gets you more holy power. It gets your wings back faster. Divine Toll comes back faster. You start getting all kinds of things that rotate through that. The next one that you really, really want to know about, I guess now because they changed Blessing, or they will be changing Blessing Winter, Blessing Winter right now is just a damage amp. So winter and summer, the pink and the blue buffs that you get will just end up buffing a DPS. You know, it cause them to do additional holy damage or additional frost damage. In 10.0.5, winter is turning into a mana regen. So when we get there, that might be helpful for you to keep your mana up. But the one that you really want to know about is going to be your Blessing of Spring. This thing is huge. And honestly, if that's all that was right here, just Blessing of Spring, it would still be worth picking. It's so good. So what Blessing of Spring does, which is every 4th cast of this buff, so you want to be casting this so it goes on cooldown and it's rotating through the seasons as you do the dungeon. Bless an ally for 30 seconds, increase their healing done by 15% and healing received by 30%. This is a huge, huge tank external that you can pop up on the tank. All of their healing done, especially on blood decays, if you're running with a blood decay, super, like it just, they're fine. They can take care of themselves. If you pop Blessing of Spring on them, it's a 45-second cooldown, but you need to cast it 4 times. So it's more like a 3-minute cooldown. But it's also healing received as well. So you pop this up on them for 30 seconds, they heal themselves more and they receive more healing. So it's a nice tank external. You can rotate this with your Blessing of Sacrifice, and it's super good for keeping tanks alive. So do not sleep on Blessing of Summer. It is amazing. Now let's talk about rotation tips and how to play. Since we got through a lot of that in the talent review, but just so we're aware of what's going on. So the first thing is going to be managing your Dusk and Dawn. This is the crux of Holy Paladin in all content. Make sure you're managing this properly. So how does that work, right? Dawn is 5 holy power and Dusk is 0 holy power. When you Holy Shock, you get 1. When you heal your Beacon of Light target with a casted heal, either Holy Light or Flash of Light, you get 1. And then if you get a crit with Holy Shock, you'll get Infusion of Light. And then if you use Holy Light, you have a chance to get additional Holy Power. So the easiest thing, if you go into a big pull and you need Holy Power, you can go ahead and you can just you can pop up and do Divine Toll. If everyone's nearby, you get a full 5 Holy Power, and that will easily get you the 5 Holy Power that you need to pop Dawn. However, there's a problem. Word of Glory and Light of Dawn, when they spend 3 Holy Power. So what you want to do is get to 5, spend, which will put you down at 2, and then what I usually do is I'll Holy Shock and then spend immediately after. So you have that going. So you get to 5, you get your Dawn buff. Once you have your Dawn buff, you're good to go. And then whether you're gonna, maybe Word of Glory, Holy Shock, and then maybe you do a Light of Dawn, right? Unless it's free, then you get down to 0. And you're managing that. Every 20 seconds, you're always hitting 5 Holy Power, 0 Holy Power. Make sure you don't lose either of these buffs. They are super, super good. And in general, just make sure that if you're under duress, you're using Holy Power spenders, and you're using Flash of Light. If you're not, you can probably just be doing Crusader Strike on a target to build up the Holy Power. Spend it with Light of Dawn, so you have that going for you. Cooldown wise, you're basically going to want to be rotating through every cooldown that you have, specifically for damage as well. So when you're in range of attacking, this is probably one of the harder parts about being a Holy Paladin versus a Holy Paladin and a Mistweaver versus the other healers, is that you do have to be in melee range at all times to get full value out of what you're doing. So just make sure that you are in range, pop Consecration, get a really good, make sure that's up at all times, and then you just want to be, using Crusader Strike, keep that on cooldown, make sure it's always at least on 1, so you're not wasting the cooldown. And then when you have wings or the target gets low, you do want to be using your Hammer of Wrath. It's an easy way to get another bit of Holy Power. So make sure you have those on cooldown, and then you kind of just pop up your heals, throw out the Hammer of Wrath, use your Holy Shock, and just make sure you're never maxing on Holy Power and you're never losing your buffs for the 2. And that goes for, by the way, it is a little more nuanced, because as you deal damage to a target and as people get close, say you get to like I'm at 4 Holy Power right now, and I don't have, if my Dawn's about to fade or I don't have Dawn at all, you'll want to wait an extra global cooldown to either cast a heal on somebody, like your Beacon of Light target, and get to 5 to get that Dawn buff, then spend, you can Crusader Strike, and then spend again, get that extra little bit there, which is really nice. Now, the other thing to think about is this talent right here. Some people like running Bestow Faith. I think the extra global is not necessary. Unending Light is super clutch in all content. So what this does is each time you spend Holy Power on Light of Dawn, which is your cone, right, your big heal, you kind of target, make sure your group is in front of you, and you get a big heal off of that. Each time you get spend Holy Power on it, you increase the healing of your next Word of Glory by 5% up to 45%, which is this right here. So up to 9 stacks of this. So as you do your Light of Dawn, you'll build that up. This is super useful because if your group is taking minor to moderate damage, you'll want to be spending up, getting your Holy Power up, make sure you're rotating your buffs, get your Light of Dawns, and then when someone drops really low, then you spend your Unending Light stacks, and you get this really big Word of Glory. Super nice. So definitely manage this. Make sure you're kind of spending as people get low. You're just using Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, and then doing Light of Dawn, keeping your tank alive, using your buffs. And then if someone gets in trouble, then you kind of use your Word of Glory. Try not to spend Word of Glory constantly in that case, but if you have to, obviously that's fine. It's just technically over time, you use the Holy Power on Light of Dawn, which is kind of a spread heal, and then you get some extra value, which makes your next single target heal to shoot someone back up. Super useful in like Ruby life pools when someone has Daughter, they have Living Bomb on them and they're getting low. And then you save this up, you have a lot of stacks for it. It's really good. You also want to be using Holy Shock on cooldown. It will proc your Infusion of Light. Consuming Infusion of Light with imbued infusions lowers the cooldown of Holy Shock. And then we have Crusader Strike also doing the same. You can really only get 1 point in this, but it's still worth it. That means that you put Holy Shock on cooldown, and then you're doing Crusader Strike, Holy Shock's back off cooldown, then you can pop that up, you can spend, then you go, Crusader Strike again, or maybe you consume one of your Infusions of Light, big boom, gets you your Holy Power, then you're stacking that up, and you're spending it. So that's kind of the basic rotation. Then for cooldowns, you obviously want to be using your Divine Favor whenever you need it. Generally, I use this on Holy Light, but if you really need to, you can Divine Favor, throw out a Flash of Light, boom, and you're good to go. Big boost. And I usually try to put this on someone that isn't my Beacon of Light target or my Beacon of Faith target, because then you just get extra healing on those two targets, receiving the healing from this big heal on it. And it's super nice because you can run it with your extra generation of Holy Power. So if you get these extra procs on you, then you pop Divine Favor and you get the Holy Light off. You can sometimes just fill up with your Holy Power and spend it again. And then you're just making sure you rotate through that. Remember that you do have Blessing of your Night Fae Blessing. And honestly, I would just find a caster or someone that hits hard to use Blessing of Summer on. I just throw it on them, make sure they have it. When it comes to Blessing of Winter right now before the next update, again, just find like a melee that hits really fast to build up the stacks. And then when it comes to your Blessing of Autumn, which is cooldowns, if you're struggling, just use it on yourself. It's super nice. Getting extra, like haste is everything to Holy Paladin, so then you can just kind of build that up, and then you can just get the cooldown reduction on your Holy Shock, which makes the whole rotation faster. And then when you get to it, you can sometimes sit on Blessing of Winter. That's the tank external. Use that on your tank. Bam. Stats-wise, haste is your best stat by far. This one increases attack speed and spell casting speed. And it really just helps your whole rotation. You get more Holy Shocks out. You can build up more Holy Power, spend more Holy Power. For your raid build and for your M+ build, haste is your primary stat. Now, when it comes to M+, depending on where you're at, versatility might be your second stat. Crit is also really good, and mastery is also really good because you can kind of position yourself next to all of the targets that would be benefiting from your mastery. Your mastery makes it so when you're closer to a target, you increase the healing done. You can stand on top of the tank, especially when they're getting really hit hard. Then you can get that extra bonus on there. Haste is primary, and if I had to lock down a priority in general for M+, it would be haste first, then versatility, then crit, then mastery. There are some builds, like I said, you can run crit over verse, or you can run higher mastery, depending on how you're playing. But if I'm just talking about blanket statement, going out to all new Paladin players for M+, haste, verse, crit, mastery. That's the order that you want to get in. That's how you want to gem and build out your stats. Then utility-wise, make sure you're making use of your full kit. So you have, obviously, Blinding Light, Super nice. Get a nice disorient in there. You can interrupt casts or movement from enemies. You do have a personal bubble, so make sure you use that. It's a long cooldown, 3.5 minute cooldown, but it means you are immune to damage. So what you can do sometimes that no other healer can do is if you see a big mechanic coming in, like at the end of Ruby Life Pools, when Karaka's doing the breath, or when you get really trapped at the vent, at big points in like Nakud, what you can do is you can just pop your shield and then just stand in it and keep casting and shooting off heals, which no other healer can do that. You can just eat it because you're not going to die or take any damage from it, and then you can benefit from it. You can also use it to soak things up, help off tank. You can bubble and taunt if you want. Super useful. Divine Protection is huge with a nice cooldown on it as well. This reduces the damage you take for 8 seconds on a short cooldown. Be using this regularly. Like I said earlier, you can, on big pulls, you can do sack the tank, and then you can use Divine Protection to reduce the damage you take from the sack spread, which prevents it from falling off, which is a nice combination. Make sure you're throwing down your Consecration, and then I would recommend getting Light's Hammer. It doesn't do a crazy amount of damage or a crazy amount of healing, but it's only a 1 minute cooldown, and it's basically free, so you can pick this up, throw it down. It's great on really big trash pulls because you'll damage everything. You'll get a little bit of healing on everyone around. So you put this with Consecrate, and you can actually do some pretty decent damage. And then from that, that's basically Holy Paladin M+. Make sure that you are staying as close as you can to the target you're healing. I generally will, if the tank, say the tank is this NPC here, and this is the mob he's fighting, I'll try to be like kind of maybe 90 degrees off, and then have the party over here, so that as I'm attacking and I'm building up holy power, then I can just kind of light up Dawn. It heals the tank, it heals everyone else, and then I'm also just kind of building it up. One of the reasons why I like Holy Paladin is just they're so in your face and aggressive. You can run around, you're super durable, you can throw off some really cool moves. You have some really nice blessings, you can throw Autumn on yourself, plus a nice little benefit there. And then during wings, you're just godly. Like every word of glory is a full heal. Your damage is decent. It's not as good as it was in Shadowlands, but still super cool. Make sure you're managing your Dusk and Dawn to just hit 5 holy power, hit 3 holy power, hit 0 holy power, and get those buffs and keep them up. And then, so that's Holy Paladin. If you have any further questions, I think this kind of covers all the gameplay that you would experience in Mythic Plus. I have gameplay videos of me playing Holy Paladin on my gameplay channel if you want to check that out. And then, if you want to see more guides, like the video, comment down below what guides you'd like to see. If you'd like to see an advanced guide, which is just about nuance and playstyle and less about the functionality of the class, let me know. And if you'd like to see a raid guide, let me know down below as well. But thanks for tuning in. See you next time. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.